job will you do if you lose your seat?
Well, I'm not going to speculate about that, and I'm not yet thinking.
Write your CV now.
Well, he's going to take it now.
Hello, Grant chaps. You're live on Sky News. I'm in the studio with Sophie Ridge. Have you just seen that you're about to lose your seat, according to the Sky News YouGov projection? He just put the phone down on me.
Brexit has cost every household £2,000. What's your answer to that?
Hello. All right.
Can you answer that, Mr. Farage?
I didn't hear the question.
Brexit has cost every household £2,000.
Oh, put a
minimum.
note on. Put a note on.
Okay, so you don't care.
You're right.
You don't care. You don't care that Brexit has made Clacton worse off. Is that what you said?
That's fine.
Is there an apology to the people of Clacton?
They say a week is a long time in politics, but in this general election, I think we can say a day is a long time, and events are very much in control of the governing party's election campaign. It started with a decision to announce to the country outside as it decided to pour with rain, and Rishi Sunak looked an absolute wimp in front of the electorate like a drowned rat. It did evoke some sympathy for some, but certainly it was a pathetic sight. And that image has continued to build amongst the electorate as Rishi Sunak seems hopelessly out of control and not knowing what he is doing. Yesterday's events at the D-Day commemoration, he chose to leave early and miss out on a photo opportunity that most politicians would die for. And today has been dominated by him having to apologise to the country for not representing Britain in these commemorations. Not only that, this week he has been absolutely snowballed by Nigel Farage's show, and of course he's decided to U-turn on his supposed not standing, and here he is in Clacton having milkshakes thrown on him and everything washing off him and not sticking. What a show. At least I guess we're going to find out how popular the vote is for Nigel Farage and the Reform Party in 4 weeks' time. But what exactly is their game plan?
It doesn't matter whether people like him or not. There wouldn't have been a Brexit referendum if there hadn't been for Nigel Farage. So he's a seminal. For good or ill, he's been a seminal influence on modern British politics. Now, no longer just idle or even stupid speculation that at some stage the Reform Party, post the election, could mount a takeover of the Conservative Party.
The political reality is that Labour is going to win anyway. Farage said that yesterday. He didn't play the usual game that party leaders play, of pretending that the opposition is bound to lose. He said very clearly yesterday Labour is going to win. I have said throughout Labour is going to win anyway. I mean, that is the first thing. The second thing is this lot aren't Tories. I mean, the highest tax burden, the highest level of immigration, highest crime rate, this lot are not Tories. They are an undisciplined rabble, have been ever since 2019, have absolutely thrown away an enormous majority, or what seemed like an enormous majority at the time of 80. I'm sorry, I've no regrets at all. They need a very good pulverising this time in order to get their act together.
But there's winning for Labour and there's winning. I mean, that's the point. I understand the argument. Labour are going to win this election by all the evidence that we have in front of us. But what you're doing is you're giving them a bigger and bigger majority. On the Reform website, I saw there's a section called Starmergeddon, a risk near you in 2024. Or Reform could give him an extra 10, 20, 30 seats. And that might be the difference between a 5-year or a 10-year or a 15-year tenure in Downing Street. I just think Reform is trying to have its cake and eat it. You want to talk about political revolt. You want to be the challenger. You want to be all plucky and tough, but what you're doing in practice is you're giving a greater power for a greater length of time to your political enemies, and that doesn't make any sense.
Well, first of all, it doesn't actually make very much difference. If Starmer is going to get a very good majority anyway. I mean, nobody's ever suggested it's going to be marginal. Doesn't make very much difference whether it's a very good majority or a very, very good majority. It will still be a Labour majority. And I think that is a fact of life. And yes, we do say Starmergeddon, and we are fighting Labour as well as the Tories. And as Nigel said yesterday, even though your profession has yet to catch up with this, we are taking a substantial number of votes from previous Labour supporters. And our aim is to become the opposition. We may not be Her Majesty's opposition in Parliament at the next election, but we'll be effectively the opposition. And from there, we will go to make sure that our agenda is implemented. Now, if you actually look at the announcement that Rishi's been making, including this latest one about restrictions to visas, we made all of those in our contract with the people before the election was even announced.
So do you want to do that? I mean, that's one of the things that Farage is famous for, that he doesn't get into power, but he influences the people who are in power. Is that something that you want to do, actually? You actually drive the Tories a little bit further right?
Well, what we want to do is to have the influence to get our agenda implemented. And you're quite right. I mean, Nigel Farage, made arguably the single biggest impact on this country in almost half a century. When he got us out of the EU without having set foot in Parliament as an MP. So, yes, you can do these things from the outside. It's probably healthy for democracy that people can have some influence from the outside.
Do you want to ultimately, though, is this an aim of yours and Nigel Farage's and Reform, that you talked about pulverising the Tory party? Do you want to try and rebuild it in your own image? So ultimately, there is no Tory party. What happened in Canada happens here, and you end up with a Reform Tory sort of amalgamation, a merger. After 10 years of Starmergeddon that you've helped deliver, you then have some sort of new Conservative party that rises from the ashes. Is that an aim of yours?
Well, first of all, don't just assume and take for granted the 10 years of Starmergeddon. Certainly there'll be 5 years of Starmergeddon, but there's no need for it to become 10. And that is just a very defeatist attitude. It's
very hard to have. If his majority is 194 seats, which is what the polls are suggesting, he ain't going to be kicked out in 5 years, you wouldn't think.
Well, that's what everybody said when our majority, when the Conservative majority was 80, and look what they've managed to do with it. So, no, it does not follow. It really does not follow. Even if he has an enormous majority, that majority cannot be lost. But the crucial question you've asked me is, will there be some sort of, you didn't phrase it this way, but realignment, if you like, of the right of centre after the next election? And that is what I am hoping will happen, and what I think absolutely must happen if the Tories are to survive at all.
Is that a kind of merger then, a sort of formal merger between Reform and Tories?
The actual form it will take at this stage, nobody can predict. And you know well that, when talks like that start, you don't quite know what the ultimate picture is going to look like. But what I do know is that I believe after the next election, regardless of the number of seats we have in Parliament, we will be the effective opposition to Starmergeddon.
And Widdicombe, thank you very much indeed. That's the Reform.
My milkshake brings all the people to the rally.
Northern Ireland is almost out of the United Kingdom.
It is absolutely disgusting at every level.
Well, how was Northern Ireland ever meant to have been handled, Nigel Farage?
Because Theresa May sold the pass right at the very beginning. She bought this myth that if somehow we didn't carve Northern Ireland away, that the Troubles would break out again. That was never, ever a possibility. It was complete failure of the British negotiating position. And I've got great friends over in Northern Ireland, particularly the DUP party, and I feel very, very, frankly, ashamed of what the Tories have done to them.
What is the way forward for Northern Ireland? What would you seek to do? What should be done for them?
Well, we cannot have a border in the Irish Sea. We cannot have one part of the United Kingdom cut off from the other. In 2025, the British government will renegotiate the Brexit deal. That has to be looked at all over again. And funnily enough, even the Republic of Ireland, who are worried about people crossing the border from Northern Ireland into the Republic, even they are now talking about some form of check.
So it seems the plan is for Reform to become the Conservative Party and then sit in opposition and formulate a plan to deliver their agenda, as Anne Widdicombe said. And their agenda is actually about really delivering the American trade deal, and that means divergence from EU regulations. That means real problems in Ireland, and probably we will see Ireland reunify and Scotland would go, possibly Wales as well eventually. Our NHS would be toast, and for sure British farming would never survive an American trade deal. So we have to hope that Starmergeddon is here to stay for a good few years, so that the agenda of reform, aka or soon to be the Conservatives, doesn't succeed in the next election around 2029. But that's what it looks like to me. And here's a reminder of Nigel talking about the NHS, which the majority of the British people support.
Healthcare very, very differently. And I think we're going to have to move to an insurance-based system of healthcare. Frankly, I would feel more comfortable that my money would return value if I was able to do that through the marketplace of an insurance company than just us trustingly giving 100 billion a year to central government and expecting them to organise the healthcare service from cradle to grave.
Before you go, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also do comment below. Let me know what you think.